How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Take His Whistle. Week 2 reactions, reviews. Stay tuned.
Oh, come on! Somebody take his whistle!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Take His Whistle podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Josh, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend, Parker. Parker, how you doing, my man?
I've been better. I've been dealing with some type of illness over the past week, and it's been rough. It's been rough out here with my body, with my football team, and yeah. But we're making it through step by step.
I can feel you on the body part. I had a bit of a sickness last week too, kind of around when you started feeling sick. But regardless, it's time to talk some football, and we're gonna get right into it, Parker. Let's go ahead and start with the brighter side of things, I guess, to put it lightly for now. Louisville Cardinals, they win. I should honestly know the score off the top of my head, but I don't have it pulled up, so let me pull it up real quick.
49-14.
49-14 over Jacksonville State. The one in Alabama, not the one in Florida. Very a very vanilla game for Louisville. I guess before we get into like the details of it, Parker, what did you see from the game? What did you like from the game? Again, very vanilla for us. We didn't really show much, but did you see anything that you liked?
Well, I want to give credit where credit is due, and a guy that played his ass off that was not playing for Louisville was Tyler Huff. I believe Tyler Huff was his name. Yeah. He's a baller, dude. He is a baller. Like, he did not care how many times he got hit. He was just going to run the ball again. Now, he didn't do much over the air. He had 160 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but 18 carries, 101 yards, and a touchdown on the ground, and had a couple really big hits on some Louisville defenders. But I want to just give credit to Tyler Huff. First things first, because he actually impressed me a lot. But with Louisville,
that boy was not scared to put his shoulder down.
No,
at all.
No. With Louisville, obviously, I mean, they did what they were supposed to. They went out, and I don't remember what the spread was of the game. I'm sure Louisville probably covered it.
They went out. It was like 26, something like that.
Okay, yeah. So they definitely covered it. Mm-hmm. Went out, did their job. Tyler Shuck looked good for the second straight game, posting 349 yards, 2 touchdowns. The running game looked strong once again with your 9,500 running backs that you guys play a game, apparently. A whole lot of running backs. But I believe it was like, I have it right here, 4 touchdowns all on the ground. Or there were 4 different touchdowns by 4 different runners on the ground. So, I mean, Louisville looked very good. Defense had a few breakdowns here and there, but for the most part, did pretty solid, especially that second half. The defense definitely turned it up in the second half. But no, Louisville looks really solid. I mean, they jumped up. I think they're ranked number 19 now. They looked real good on Saturday.
Yeah, I guess to piggyback off of you, we jumped up from 22 to 19, jumped up 3 spots, right behind Notre Dame, who we'll talk about that later. But Tyler Shuck, another successful day in the pass game, didn't turn over the ball. He actually did throw an interception, I believe, but it got called back because of holding on defense or something like that. So he actually got the interception taken away from him. So still perfect on the season as far as touchdown to interception ratio. I believe he has 6 touchdowns on the season now to 0 interceptions. And I was looking at it earlier. He's in the like top 15 in passing yards. He has like 500 something, I think, maybe 600 something. But he's up there. But the rushing, like you said, It's actually 5 rushing touchdowns from 5 different runners.
Oh, wow.
Maurice Turner, Kewan Brown, Duke Watson, Donald Chaney Jr., and Dwayne Martin, our fullback, got one for himself.
Oh, okay. Okay. See, I didn't see the Dwayne Martin fullback. I didn't see that one.
Yeah, no, all good. And then obviously 2 receiving touchdowns, one by Chris Bell and one by Mark Redmond, our tight end. But yeah, there's honestly not much to say about this game, truly, just because of how vanilla it was. Like, genuinely.
I don't know what that is. I swear to God, I think this has happened before. I don't know what that is.
All right. Thanks, Discord, or whatever is doing that to us. But yeah, again, just anything that we said about the Louisville versus Austin Peay game, honestly, you can say the same thing about this game. Really didn't show much. There's not much to talk about. We covered the spread. We won. That's all you can ask for. One thing I will say is the defense has to be better throughout the entirety of the game. And also, one other thing is we cannot let a quarterback scramble for 100+ yards on us in the rushing game, because for the Louisville fans out there, or Kentucky fans, whatever fans out there, if you know our schedule, you know that we play one of the best running quarterbacks maybe in the nation in 2 weeks. Haynes King is not gonna be any slouch against us when it comes to running the ball, and if we allow him to do that against us, there's a very real chance that the outcome's not a 30+ point win like this game was. But yeah, that's my only complaint, is that the defense has to be better throughout all 4 quarters, and we cannot let a quarterback do that to us. And
yeah. I think that as far as the defense went, there were a few kind of like, concerning things, and majority of that was just Huff being able to get out of the pocket and pick up a bunch of free yards without even being touched. Mm-hmm. But I think that is a very fixable thing. That is not something that's going to deteriorate your season, is letting your quarterback rush. And then the only other thing that I really saw from the defense that might have been a little concerning was on, I believe it might have been their first or second it was their first touchdown. Louisville kind of just forgot about one of Jack State's receivers and left him wide open in the end zone. Again, you could throw that up on the play call that Jacksonville State called. You could throw it up on just like a small blooper that ended up being a touchdown. But other than that, defense looked really good, especially like I said in the second half, shut out Jacksonville State. I think the defense is going to be fine. I will say Ashton Gelati had quite the quiet game. Only 1 tackle, which I don't know if he played the entire game or not. He might have, he might not have, but a pretty quiet game from him for the most part.
Yeah, one thing I'm noticing with Ashton in just these first 2 games alone is that he's getting double teamed, he's getting triple teamed out there. Yeah. So he hit well, but it's also a good thing because you look at the rest of the team, like Tramel Logan, for example, he finished the game with a sack. So it opens up that other side of the defensive line a lot if he's getting double and triple teamed, because they got to figure out something for Ashton. And if they're focusing that much on Ashton, it leaves the entire rest of the D-line just completely open. I also want to highlight one more thing in this game. Quincy Riley, first interception of the season for him. That's it. First interception of the season for him. One of the best corners in the league, in the country.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
That was nice to see him get that. And honestly, it was a fairly easy interception as well. Just a completely overthrown ball that he really just he kind of looked like the wide receiver out there, to be honest with you. But good for him. Happy he got that one to start the season strong. And we're looking forward to Georgia Tech. And I think it's time, Parker. Unfortunately, I think it's time.
I do want to say one thing is,
what's up?
You said it earlier today. It's so weird that a team already has a bye week 2 weeks in.
It's horrible.
It doesn't seem right. It's like, why are they not playing? Like for most of the country, they're still playing Jacksonville State-esque teams week 3, and Louisville already has a week off. But no, so literally a week off to prepare for Georgia Tech, and then they played Georgia Tech to open ACC play, which should be a pretty solid game. I hope that I somehow can make it out there. I don't know if I will be able to with my work schedule, but I do hope to make it out there. That could be a good one. As much as I think Louisville is the favorite in that matchup for sure, especially being at home with Louisville being such a home field advantage. Georgia Tech is battle tested. They've already had a couple big games. They lost this past week to who was it? Syracuse. But they are battle tested where Louisville is not. But I do think Louisville is the just overall better team. So I think that should be a real good matchup. And that Louisville is probably going to be preparing for the next 2 weeks for that game specifically.
Mm-hmm. And real quick, one thing I really hate about our schedule this year, and you kind of mentioned it, but the bye weeks and the scheduling of it just doesn't make sense at all. Florida State had their bye week this week. Mm-hmm. Technically, they had their bye week 2 of the season. So there's their bye week. We have our bye week 3 of the season, and then we open up conference play against Georgia Tech. Well, excuse me. A big problem I have is that our 2 hardest games on our schedule, both of our opponents come off of bye weeks, whereas we do not.
Are you talking Clemson and Miami or Notre Dame and Miami?
Yeah, Clemson and Miami. Going into week 7 against Miami, it's at Louisville, but Miami comes into that game off of a week 6 bye. So they get 2 weeks to prepare for us. We get 1 technically, unless we look ahead unless we look past Virginia at Miami, which I
don't want to do that.
Don't think we want to do that because Virginia always gives us problems for some reason. And then Clemson, they get a week 7 bye before week 8 playing us at Clemson, which that's going to be a tough game regardless. But they catch us off of as of right now, a top 25 matchup against Boston College at Chestnut Hill. So it's kind of frustrating scheduling there. I don't know who makes these schedules, so I don't really know who to complain to. But that's one big pet peeve I have is that our 2 biggest opponents have bye weeks right before playing us. But that's all though.
So yeah, I guess we can transition to the other less favorable main topic for today. And that is my Kentucky Wildcats, who, going into this season, we were so excited. We knew it was a hard schedule, and we knew that the results were probably going to be pretty average to maybe even below average. We were hoping for above average, but we knew with just how hard of a schedule Kentucky had this year that it was going to be rough. But we knew we also had all the talent in the world. And it was a very weird start to the season. We only got to play one half of football in week 1, and we come out in a packed Kroger Field and just have an absolute collapse offensively to South Carolina. People are saying it is the worst performance in the Mark Stoops era. I don't necessarily want to say that just because I think our defense actually played pretty well for the most part. So I don't want to say it was the worst performance in the Mark Stoops era, but still, it was horrendous. It was extremely embarrassing. Louisville fans have had a field day with it. They love it. They want more of it. Ooh, rhyming accidentally. But no, yeah. So I could sit here and talk about this game for the entire duration of this podcast, but I'm going to try to keep it kind of short and simple. You watch the game and, like I said, defense was fine. It looks like the 31 points isn't necessarily justified because 7 of those points came from a pick 6, and then the rest was just because the defense was out there the entire time. They were tired. They were just genuinely tired. You can't expect a defense to play the entire game on lockdown. And like the first half, we only held South Carolina to 10 points. But, man, that offense was rough. There's been a lot of pointing fingers, whether it's Brock Vandagriff, whether it was the offensive line, and it's bad. It's bad over here in blue right now. Josh, before I actually get into the meat of it, what did you see from that game that kind of – I mean, I guess you probably saw the same thing that everybody else saw, but do you have any takes on anything that you saw from the game?
Well, it's very hard to say what I'm about to say because people are already overreacting. So it's going to be very hard to say this without people taking it the wrong way, maybe, or anything like that. But I don't think it's time to panic on Brock Vandegrift. It's week 2 of the season. I get it. He played terrible. It was probably one of the worst, if not the worst, performance by a Kentucky quarterback in the last, I don't know, maybe the last 5 years, maybe more. But
it was probably more. 3 for 10, 30 yards.
Yeah, 3 for 10, 30 yards and a pick. But at the same time, one thing I saw was the play calling. The play calling wasn't really there at all. I questioned a lot of the offensive play calls by Bush Hamden. A lot of it just didn't make sense, especially when it wasn't working. One thing I heard people say is, like a third and long, one thing that the Kentucky way is to throw a screen pass on third and long every single time. And, when it doesn't work a couple times, you'd think you'd maybe switch to something else. But, I don't know. There wasn't really much. There wasn't very much positives to take away from this. There was a lot of negative, but it was a lot of negative as a whole. Like, there's not very much that I can point out specifically. It was just all around not great. Going into this game, I think Kentucky was like double-digit favorites spread-wise against South Carolina. Yeah. South Carolina looked terrible week 1. They struggled against a very mid Old Dominion team, like a very not great Old Dominion team. And then they just came into Kroger Field and kind of did whatever they wanted to do. And it was good game planning by Beamer, who apparently only likes to scheme against Kentucky and nobody else. I don't know why. But
Beamer absolutely hates Stoops. He despises Stoops with a passion. And so he gets his boys ready every time he plays Kentucky, for sure.
Yeah, which I find so dumb, because if you can get your players up for this game, why the hell can't you get them up for every other game? Like, it makes no sense to me. But Lenore Sellers played good. Other than that one pick, he didn't really throw much either, but the throws that he did make, he was making them count. And then one thing I will point out specifically, the penalties. The penalties on that O-line is something that cannot happen. And this is a problem that you guys had last year, if I'm not mistaken. You guys were the most penalized team in the SEC last year. And, I mean, you're probably leading that pack again this year. Just so many holding calls, so many holding calls. And there were a lot of plays, a lot of chunk plays that got called back because of holding calls. I think Sumo probably would have had damn near 200 rushing yards had half of his runs not been called back for holding. And you would think that with the experience that's on the O-line, you would think that it would be something that's different. I mean, you guys have a fucking 7th-year senior as your starting center or something like that, and even he's getting called. So I'm sorry, Louisville fans, but Parker, I was trying to pass time at work today, and I threw on KSR, and they actually said this little fact today that I've actually found very interesting. Do you want to know what is it? I really don't want to get this wrong for his sake, but is it Eli Cox that's the 7th-year senior?
I believe he is a 6th year. Maybe we have a 6th year and a 7th year on our O line. Eli Cox is our center, though.
Okay, it was about Eli Cox then. Do you want to know what his PFF grade was for that game?
Oh God, yeah. What was it?
It's 0 to 100. That's what the grading scale is. Do you want to know what his PFF grade was? As a 6th-year senior?
I bet you it was pretty bad.
5. His PFF rating was 5. 5 out of 100.
Out of 100.
Out of 100.
Holy.
that's just not something that can happen. And yeah, it's the offensive line. If that's the offensive line that Kentucky's going to put out there for the rest of the year, Brock might have a few concussions by the end of the season.
Yeah, so a lot of people are blaming Brock himself, right? They're like, I've seen multiple people, especially on Twitter, say like, well, the offensive line didn't really even play that bad. Just Vandegrift didn't have any pocket presence. He didn't know when to get out. He didn't know when to throw the ball away. I'm like, brother.
Carolina, you're contradicting yourself in that statement.
South Carolina would rush 3 and get to Brock within seconds. Would rush 3. I know there's that one video, that one clip. I forgot what his name is. He's a stud. That freshman
Dylan Stewart,
right edge, I think. Yeah. Just completely
blowing by.
Almost goes untouched by 3 different defenders. Gets right to Brock. Again, I don't want to say Brock is not responsible for any of it, because there were a few plays that he passed that he struggled with. He overshot a guy. That interception was really bad. He overshot a few guys. But then you also look, he had a lot of really good passes, though, that just didn't count. He had a deep ball to either Macklin or Brown. He had a deep ball that didn't count, but it was right on the money. Right on the money. He had a pass to Dane Key in the middle of the field. Got called back. And on top of that, once you get if you're putting yourself into a quarterback mind, once the pocket continues to collapse over and over and over again, you continue to get hit. Your instinct is to be like, okay, I got 1, maybe 2 seconds all game long, and if I don't get out of the pocket within those 2 seconds, I will get sacked, because it's already happened all day long. So even if the pocket hasn't necessarily collapsed yet, he's already been sacked all game long. And I'm talking like third quarter-ish. He's going to get out of the pocket regardless, because he knows that this offensive line cannot hold. And if he stays in that pocket any much longer, he is going to get sacked. I really do not think Brock is fully responsible for this whatsoever. Again, he missed some passes. He could have probably done more. But a lot of the times, your quarterback can only do so much. It can only be as good as your offensive line at sometimes. And I think our besides the holding calls, I think that our run game was actually pretty solid. Sumo had 70 yards on the ground. Jason Patterson had 45. Wimsat, the backup quarterback, came in. He had 44 yards. Like the run blocking was actually really solid. It was just, rushing 3 guys, or South Carolina rushing 3 guys and getting to the quarterback instantly is unacceptable. And we have such a elite receiving core with Brown, Macklin, and Key that all Vandegrift needs is just a little bit of time, and he is going to make, the offense is going to move. It's going to move. But it was, I don't know what it was. I have no actual explanation of why the offensive line played as bad as they did. I don't know. It was weird. And also I do agree with you, Josh, as far as the play calling was kind of strange at points. But yeah, it was a rough one. It was for sure a rough one. And it doesn't get any better, because we stay at home, but now we got to play number 1 ranked Georgia, which is golly. But at the same time though, I think this Kentucky team has so much talent. I'm not saying Kentucky's going to win by any means, but Kentucky could go out there and actually make it kind of a little bit of a competitive game. We've hung with Georgia in the past before. We have that much talent where we could make it competitive, especially with that defense. If our defense is playing as best as it can, it could be another low-scoring game that, again, Georgia probably pulls out. But I don't think it's time to necessarily panic just yet. As bad as our offense looked, I do feel like some of these problems are fixable. I feel like the offensive line can be fixed this season. I think that there is enough games on our schedule. Vanderbilt's looked great. I don't know if I should even put Vanderbilt in that category. Florida has not looked good. Auburn looked horrible this week. Like, there are a few games out there that
DJ Lagway looked pretty damn good against Samford. I will say that. Florida's still Florida's still not a good team. I'm just saying specifically DJ Lagway looked good.
Yeah.
Florida.
Josh, you know how I'm really high on DJ Lagway.
Yeah.
I'm a big DJ Lagway fan, even though he plays for Florida.
He had an outstanding pass. I don't know if you saw it, but there was one pass he had. It was a great pass. I'll have to send it to you later,
But no, yeah. Now, are we going to be able to compete with some of the big boys like Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, which Tennessee looks amazing? Probably not. It could very well be a long year. And, as much as I think everyone thought that Kentucky was going to win the South Carolina game, I don't think it was ever not a possibility that Kentucky could very easily start 1-2 this season. Right? Like, especially in the years past where we're used to starting 5-0, 4-0, 6-0. Now we're going to start the season 1-2. I mean, at the same, it's not very different if we, it doesn't matter how you get there. There's a chance that we finish 6-6 and 7-5 still. I don't know. I just, like I said, I'm probably going to go to the Georgia game this Saturday just because tickets are kind of cheap and I kind of want to watch Georgia play.
Sorry. For the people watching on YouTube, I'm watching the Niners Jets game, and there was a penalty that got called back that would have ruined me.
I guess the last topic I do want to talk about with Kentucky, though, before we move on, I want to kind of talk about all the Mark Stoops stuff that's been going on, about how Mark Stoops needs to be fired. And I want to look right here in the camera when I say, I told you so. Remember, I posted a TikTok not about a year, it was less than a year ago, and I got much hate.
It was only like 6 months ago.
I got so much hate because I was like, I don't know if Mark Stoops is right for the job. And everyone was like, you're wrong. Stoops is staying at Kentucky forever. I love Stoops, blah, 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 blah. Guys, I know what I'm talking about a little bit. I do know a little bit of ball. Just a little bit. With that being said, though, let's not give up on Stoops week 2 of the college football season. Whether you want him gone or not, more than likely he's going to be our head coach until January, right? Like we got a lot of football still to be played, and
I mean,
I don't want to just.
Go ahead. No, go ahead and finish.
I don't want to give up on our head coach 2 weeks into the season because a bad offensive performance. Where again, I think our defense played really good.
Yeah, I mean, all your points are good, and I agree with all of them. And I agree, I don't think Stoops is the guy. I think it's been evident for a while. And, again, you and me talked about this a long time ago. Listen, this guy accepted a job at another school, and because that school is a cult and their fan base actually holds a ton of power with what they decide to do there, the fan base said, you better not fucking hire this guy because he's a shit coach. And A&M went, oh, you're right, we're not going to hire him. And then they went out and got Mike Elko. This guy was 1 foot out the door, Parker, maybe even more than 1 foot. This guy was every body part except for a arm out the door. And he had his bags ready to head to College Station tomorrow, but the fan base rejected him, so they didn't wind up hiring him. So I don't think he's the guy. I think it's been consistent as to what Kentucky's gonna get out of him every year. He's a good recruiter. Or actually, I don't even know if I can say he's a good recruiter because Vince Amaro apparently is the Vince Morrow is the good recruiter. So when you think about it that way, what is Stoops even doing? What is he even doing? And I think personally, Kentucky could go out and get an up and comer that could flip their entire program around. And I see a lot of Kentucky fans wanting Summerall from Tulane, and I think that would be a great hire.
Oh my gosh!
But,
if we could get Summerall, I would love that.
Yeah, I think, and I guarantee you, he'd want that job too, an SEC job. I don't know if he has. I don't know if he has any ties to Kentucky, but I think he would want that job.
That's my only thing is like, that's the only thing that's like, kind of conflicting is that like, if you get rid of Stoops, who are you gonna go hire?
Well, see, that one for one, that is the problem. You would probably have to go for a mid-major guy or a group of 5 guy that has their group of 5 team on a good course. I couldn't really give you any names specifically, but Summerall obviously is
I understand.
One obvious one, but you'd probably have to go the GO5 route and hire an up and comer, but. I mean, there's no harm in doing that, though. Every single school has had to do that in their past to get to where they're at. Every coach came from somewhere.
Yeah.
But the last point I have is the only bad thing about the Kentucky job in regards to Stoops, and the only reason why he won't get fired or won't, lose his job, is because all it takes is to make it 6 years in a row. That's all it takes. That's all it takes to keep your job, and it's the most bullshit thing I've ever seen from a athletic department. The fact that all he has to do is just beat Louisville every year and he gets to keep his job is ridiculous.
I wish I could. I might honestly, just to go prove a point to. Probably the 5 people listening to this. I wish I could scroll back in time to Kentucky's football post where they played South Carolina last year. And after the game was over and we lost, I guarantee you there was a overwhelming amount of fire Stoops or talking about how bad of a coach Stoops was after the South Carolina game. But we played Louisville the very next week after losing to South Carolina, and we won. And the entire just like fan base almost completely is just like, oh yeah, Stoops, yeah, he's the man. It's just like I understand it. It's a rival. It's the rivalry, and Louisville is usually a ranked team, but man, I don't think that should be the reason that a person can keep his job or not. Like hypothetically, let's just say Louisville, let's just say Kentucky is 3 and 8 going into that game, and they win to go 4 and 8 on the year. Stoops probably keeps his job,
which is ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
We could literally go 0 and 8 in SEC play, beat Louisville, and Stoops keeps his job.
You could beat Louisville and have all 3 of your other wins are all against non-power conference schools, except for the Louisville
it would
game.
be against Southern Miss, Ohio, Murray State, and Louisville would be our 4 wins.
Yeah. Which
I don't know.
Yeah.
But also at the same time though, I think that if that were to happen and they go 4 and 8 with a win over Louisville, I think the damage could be done. I think the only way Stoops honestly keeps his job after this year, whether he gets fired or he leaves just because of the just like absolute just rejection from the fan base and the boosters and stuff like that, is he's going to have to take down one of the big four. He's going to have to take down Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, or Texas this year. That's the only way. And after seeing what Kentucky looked like offensively Saturday, that's not a possibility. I think that's the only way that he keeps his job is beating one of those four.
And listen, last thing on Kentucky, and then we can move on, Parker. Let me just pull it up real quick. I'm sorry. So if we're going to sit here today and we're going to assume that the big four on the schedule are automatic losses, if we're just going to say that today, if we're going to assume Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas are losses, you might disagree with me, Parker, but based off of what I saw in that South Carolina game, the Kentucky-Florida game is a toss-up. That's a 50-50 game, in my opinion. Auburn looks pretty damn bad. But again, after what I saw in the South Carolina game, in my own head, I really have no other choice but to say that's a toss-up game as well. It is at Kroger, though. So, that is one bit.
Does that matter?
Yeah, I don't know. There might be 5 fans there by that point in the season.
Well, I'm not even saying that. I mean, Kroger Field was packed out Saturday. It was a fucking whiteout.
Yeah.
It was a whiteout.
Yeah.
So.
But my point being, obviously you have to beat the teams that you need to beat. That being Ohio, Murray State. You already beat Southern Miss. Vandy looks good. You have to beat Vandy. Vandy is almost like Vandy is the next must-win game on your schedule. If you lose that Vandy game, if you lose that Vandy game, I have a hard time saying that you guys beat Florida and maybe even Auburn, depending on how bad it is. But that is the next must-win game I see on your all schedule. Again, that's assuming that Georgia and Ole Miss are both losses. And again, you guys should beat Ohio. That's a whole different story if you guys lose to Ohio. But I don't anticipate that happening.
No, because, I mean, our offense was moving just fine against Southern Miss. And, actually, our offense, Vandergrift looked great against a Southern Miss.
Mm-hmm.
And, I hope that it would be the same against Ohio.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to see. It'll be an interesting next few weeks. That's for sure.
I think that it's a very real possibility that we could go 4-8. For sure. Losing to or beating Ohio, Murray State, and Vanderbilt and Southern Miss could be our only 4 wins this year. And again, Vanderbilt looks very more improved. Now, was that only a fluke? Maybe it was against Virginia Tech. I know they shut out whoever they played, but that was like a community college, so you can't really take too much away from that, but Vanderbilt has shown improvement for sure. I think Kentucky should handle Vanderbilt. I really hope so. I don't know though, but we very easily could go 4-8 this year. We could also go 7-5 though, as well. Again.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's time to move on from our favorite teams, Parker.
Sure.
Let's see here. You've got the itinerary pulled up. So. What are we hitting here next?
Let's see. Yeah, so to open yesterday, opened Saturday, a big-time matchup, the first real big-time matchup, that being Texas and Michigan. It was a top 10 matchup?
Top 10 matchup, yeah. Number 3 versus number 10.
Top 10 matchup. Texas goes into the big house, and Texas just ran the table from start to finish over Michigan, and it was packed out there at the big house.
It was.
Obviously, Michigan didn't have a quarterback week 1, really. They were kind of just figuring out who to go with. This week, the go was Davis Warren.
And they still don't have a quarterback.
Davis Warren didn't play horrible. He didn't play great by any means. I think he played better than people want to give him credit for. 204 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions against a very stout Texas defense. Do you not think that way?
I completely think the other way. I think Davis Warren's terrible. I just watching that game because I watched the full game, so I don't know if you did, but I saw the throws that he was making. First off, 90% of his throws are checkdowns, which is fine. Like if that's the safe way to play, if that's the safe route to take, that's fine. But when you're missing easy checkdown passes or the wide receivers are dropping them, we've got a problem. And first off, Michigan only has one damn weapon for this kid. They only have one weapon. They don't have anybody else. And I fail to have this shit pulled up every single time we talk about stuff. But let me just pull it up real quick. Apologies. Colston Loveland. Excuse me. I hate Wikipedia. Okay, sorry. Colston Loveland, number 18 for Michigan, only weapon. Only weapon for Davis Warren. He's the only guy that consistently got open. He isn't the one who caught the touchdown. That was Samaj Morgan. But Colston Loveland is the only playmaker in the wide receiver position. Everybody else can't get separation. Nobody else can get open. Donovan Edwards, who was hyped up to be one of the best returning running backs in the nation this year, looks like absolute shit 2 games into the season. He looked terrible against Fresno State, and he looked terrible against Texas. I understand being bad against Texas. I don't understand being bad against Fresno State. And I don't see anything entertaining about that offense. Nothing in that Michigan offense makes me want to watch them. The defense was hyped up to be one of the best defenses in the nation. You know, they have Mason Graham on the D-line. They have Will Johnson on the corner, right, on the boundary. The defense can't stop anything. The defense can't stop a run. They can't stop a pass. It's like, where's the defense that was getting hyped up to the nation? Because we're not seeing it. And yes, they do have Mason Graham. They do have Will Johnson. They have 2 great individual players on that defense, but they can't play together. That is one thing I noticed. This defense cannot play as a defense. Mason Graham and Will Johnson can play defense as Mason Graham and Will Johnson, but they can't play defense as Michigan. And that's a problem. If you can't play defense as a team, that's a problem. And also, just to kind of end the things that I have on Michigan, one, I said last week they weren't going to be a playoff team, and they might not even be ranked by the end of the season. I still stand on that hill. I don't think they'll be ranked by the end of the season. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. If they are ranked, it's going to be in the 20s, but I don't see that happening either. 2, I'm blanking on his name. Time to do more research. Sharon Moore, not a college football head coach. He was a great assistant. He was a great assistant for Harbaugh, but he is not a head coach, and I don't see him being there longer than next year. Maybe even this year, depending on how bad they do. But I feel like Michigan kind of feels like they owe it to him, I think. So I think he'll keep his job for at least 1 year. But Michigan is not good.
Yeah, well, we know where Josh stands with Michigan. He is not a fan of Michigan. Kind of how I was talking a little bit about Texas this year. I was not very high on Texas. I thought that Texas was still elite. Like, they were still, like, in that upper echelon of teams, but I thought that they were kind of a step below a lot of the other teams up there. I was kind of mistaken. Now, what did Texas play that good because Michigan's defense was that bad? Or did Texas play that good because Texas is so good? I know Quinn Ewers looked amazing. 246 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Gunnar Helm looked great, 7 catches, 98 yards, and a touchdown. Obviously, Isaiah Bond, 3 catches, 51 yards. Texas looked very impressive, start to finish, just dominating the defending champions. I want to apologize for anybody that heard me last week when I said that I'm not high on Texas. Texas is legit. Texas is going to be a legitimate contender come playoff time. Josh, I know that you kind of liked Texas this whole time. You've been kind of on the up with Texas. I mean, Quinn Ewers, where would you rank him as the number one quarterback in football right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I would. I think he's up there, maybe tied with Carson Beck, if not above Carson Beck.
Mm-hmm.
I think what he showed against Michigan was outstanding. He was able to do whatever he wanted against that secondary. He was able to make any throw he wanted. He was hitting tight passes. He was putting it in the pocket. Yeah, just a great game from Quinn Ewers. Like you said, 24, 36, 246, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's a great stat line. That's a good game. And from what I saw in that game, he was calm, composed, and he hit his targets. But also that run attack by Texas, I know the box score is not going to knock you off your feet, but them backs, they had some gritty short runs. They had some very gritty short runs in there, and Jarrett Gibson's a true freshman for Texas this year. He had 10 carries, 36 yards, and a touchdown. That kid's a dog. That kid is a dog. He played with a lot of energy and power in that game. Jadon Blue is very good as well, but he kind of got hurt early in the game, and then they kind of had him on and off. But 9 carries, 22 yards for him. But, yeah, Jarrett Gibson's a dog in that run game, and I expect him to have a good true freshman season, assuming they continue to play him, which I think they should because, again, he's great. But, yeah, Texas looked every bit of what I thought that they should or would look.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we probably won't talk about Texas again for quite some time because they play UTSA, Louisiana Monroe, and Mississippi State, their next 3 matchups, and then they hop right into the Red River rivalry, and then following that, hop right into the Georgia game, which was going to be a really good one. So next couple weeks probably won't hear much about Texas. I'm sure they're just going to be doing their things. I hope so.
I fully expect that Texas-Georgia game to be 1-2. A 1-2 matchup.
Well, it already is, technically.
Right now it is, yes, but they have, 4 weeks in between then? So anything can happen, it's college football. But
Kentucky takes down Georgia this week, and then it's fucked up. Everything's fucked up.
And the whole world sets on fire.
But no, yeah, that Texas-Georgia game is going to be great. It's going to be 1-2 for sure. Except, I mean, this whole week was pretty crazy. There were a lot of upsets, but a lot of teams that ended up winning, but very, very narrowly won games. And so these next couple topics, not necessarily, I don't want to spend too much time on it. Those 3 games, the Kentucky, Louisville, and the Texas-Michigan game, were definitely the 3 that I wanted to spend a little bit more time on. So these next couple of topics, kind of just want to briefly talk about them. The first one is Notre Dame. Once again, another year, another disappointment, falls to Northern Illinois, who is now ranked, actually, on a last-second field goal. Man, Josh. I mean, I thought that Notre Dame this year was a lot better than Notre Dame last year. I was not high on last year's Notre Dame team, but I don't want to say I was like super high on them, but I felt a lot more comfortable with that team. They lose at home to Northern Illinois. Was that just like a Notre Dame's really just not that good? Or was it just like they were just completely overlooking Northern Illinois? They weren't taking them serious. Like what was that?
I have a lot of thoughts. Because I've said it countless times. I think Notre Dame's a little overhyped. I know I've said it on here plenty of times. I know I've probably said it in the past couple episodes. I really wish it was us that got the chance to expose them, because I really genuinely think that we would have destroyed them in South Bend. But now I'm even more confident in saying that I genuinely think we're going to destroy them in South Bend. But I don't know. I really don't know. Jeremiah Love looks great. Their running back.
Yeah.
Number 4, he looks great. He's great. But the receivers aren't great. They can't get separation. They can't get open. I feel like I say that about so many teams, but it's true. I mean, none of these receivers can get fucking open. Notre Dame's receivers got shut down by NIU's secondary. Riley Leonard doesn't look good. Riley Leonard, everyone was hyping him up this offseason. He didn't do anything that special at Duke besides give them the best football season in their school history. He wasn't that great which isn't hard, but he wasn't great at Duke. I don't know why he got all this hype coming into this season. Probably because it's Notre Dame. I really don't. I don't get it. And then the defense wasn't great either. NIU ran the damn ball all over them. Just trench ran them, just destroyed them in the trenches. It was unbelievable. And NIU's running back is a dog. NIU's running back had 20 carries for 99 yards and 2 receptions for 126 yards and a receiving touchdown.
Yeah.
That, which, by the way, was the only offensive touchdown they scored because Riley Leonard decided he wanted to throw 2 picks. And so they were already in good field position half the time, and all they had to do was kick field goals. So, yeah, it's rough.
What's funny is last week when we were doing predictions, and you said Notre Dame's playing Northern Illinois, and you took Notre Dame right off the bat, and I stuttered just a second. I was like, and you were like, nah, Parker, stop. You're not being serious, are you? Just a little bit. That could have been the craziest prediction of all time right there if I would have called that. Almost did it. Ended up going with Notre Dame, and they failed me.
Yeah.
But Notre Dame. Yeah, they failed both of us. Notre Dame.
I might call them frauds, but I expect them to beat an NIU team. So,
So it could get rough, but at the same time for Notre Dame, it could. I mean, obviously this was a huge flaw in their game, but they very easily could not lose a game for the rest of the year. Now they have to play a very tough Louisville team, and they have to end the year against a very tough USC team. Those are definitely their 2 hardest games left. But other than that, if they can somehow pull off a win against Louisville, which is at home, so I mean, home field advantage goes to Notre Dame.
They're hyped up for that game. They've already announced that it's a green out game. They're out for revenge in that one. But
I was just about to say that. I'm sure they're going to be looking forward to playing Louisville. USC, I mean, again, that's a rivalry game. You never know how that game's going to go. Other than those 2 games, if they can pull out those 2 games, very easily could they not lose another one. And they could be 11-1, and that loss to Northern Illinois is just going to be a trophy for Northern Illinois to tell their recruits that, oh, yeah, we beat Notre Dame back in 2024. So, I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. I am really looking forward to that Louisville game because I think that's really going to be the definite explanation if Notre Dame is really frauds or not. If they go toe-to-toe with Louisville, and let's just say Louisville comes out on top, I mean, you can't really fault Notre Dame for that, but if both Louisville goes up to South Bend and Louisville just absolutely dominates, kind of how they did last year, then Notre Dame needs to refigure out their whole program.
Yeah, look, that Louisville game is either going to be the stim pack that revives their season, or it's going to be the nail in the coffin for their season. One or the other. Mm-hmm. It's definitely going to be exciting. But I would like to do this, Parker, if you don't mind. I know you got a couple games that you want to talk about really quickly, so here's what I want to do. I want to run through the entire Week 2 slate as far as the top 25 ranked teams, and you just tell me to stop on a game that you just want to point at real quick.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, so we got Texas beating Michigan 31-12. We have Oklahoma State beating Arkansas 39-31 in overtime. That was a very terrible game, even though it went in overtime.
Pissed me off.
Yeah.
Because Kentucky played right after them, and because it went into overtime, I pretty much missed the entire first quarter of the Kentucky game because that game was on. I was very mad about that. But no, yeah, I can't. We said it last week that very easily Arkansas is going to give Oklahoma everything they want, and they did.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Oklahoma, a Big 12 contender this year, they got the job done.
Mm-hmm. Which I will say, the Ollie Gordon for Heisman debate is officially dead after that game because he had 17 carries for 49 yards. I think he's a shadow of himself last year.
I'm pretty sure he did have the game-winning touchdown, though, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe not. Maybe it was game tying to send it to overtime. He had a touchdown very late in the game, though. I do remember that.
That's good for him, but he's still playing like shit. Moving on, Kansas State beats Tulane 34-27. That was actually a very entertaining game. Kansas State scored late in the game to take that lead and pull it off. Penn State beats Bowling Green 34-27.
I don't know, man. Like
Penn State looked rough in that one. Bowling Green almost handed them that L.
Yeah. I was quite surprised to see Penn State look as bad as they did.
Yeah, that was a very interesting game to see going into halftime of that game and seeing Bowling Green winning. Definitely not what I expected to see. Georgia beats Tennessee Tech 48-3.
Don't need to talk about
Northern Illinois beats Notre Dame 16-14. Utah beats Baylor 23-12. Surprise, surprise, Cam Rising got hurt again in that game.
Yep.
Boston College beats Duquesne 56-0. Louisville beats Jacksonville State 49-14. Iowa State beats Iowa 2019 on a game-winning field goal.
Yeah.
That was a fun game.
Iowa State is actually ranked.
Yeah, and now Iowa State essentially takes Iowa's place in the top 25, which Iowa State's a good team. Iowa State's a good football team this year. That was a fun game to watch. I always like watching that rivalry game because they tend to play each other very close and very good. So,
and also I think it's just both of them have very unorthodox ways of playing football, in my opinion. It's not like your traditional just like shootout, like who can score more points type of game. It's a fun, that's definitely a fun rivalry.
Yeah. Let's see here. Ole Miss beats Middle Tennessee 52-3. Miami beats Florida A&M 56-9. Missouri beats Buffalo 38-0.
Real quick, I mean, actually hang on, keep going.
Were you just going to talk about Miami looking good?
I was going to say something about Miami, but I'm going to save it for another game you're about to call here in a second.
Okay. Okay. Alabama beats South Florida 42-16 in a very unimpressive looking game for Alabama. Alabama, that score may look deceiving. Do not let it fool you because Alabama was only winning by 3, I think. Maybe they might have been losing going into the fourth quarter, where they scored 28 points in the fourth quarter to win the game.
They were winning by 1 going into the fourth quarter.
Okay, they were winning by 1 going into the fourth quarter, where they scored 28 points, which is how we ended up at 42-16. Alabama did not look impressive.
Agreed.
Do you have anything?
No.
Okay,
to be honest, I didn't even watch that game.
Okay, you're good. Let's see here. Tennessee blows out NC State 51-10.
Yeah.
Rough one. Grayson McCall again didn't look great. Ohio State beats Western Michigan 56-0.
Hang on. We do have to give props to Tennessee.
We do. Nico looks like him. Nico
all the way around. As much as it makes my tummy upset to say it, I mean, dude, complete top to bottom, Tennessee looks stout.
Yeah,
dude, they look great.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, Nico is gonna be not fun for the next couple years being a Kentucky fan. But yeah, Tennessee looks great.
Yeah. Defense and offense, which going into this season, most people were just talking about their defense. but now they just look like a very good overall team. Let's see. I left off at Ohio State beats Western Michigan 56-0. Another interesting one. Nebraska beats Colorado 28-10. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but one thing I do know is that Dylan Raiola looks like the next looks like a guy for Nebraska. He looks like he's going to lead them to some promising places in his tenure there. And Colorado looks exactly like how I thought they would look, and that is frauds. Shedeur Sanders.
I saw a post conference or something like that with Shedeur, where he pretty much blatantly just blamed his offensive line.
Yeah,
like took no credit at all. Just blamed his offensive line for it.
Yeah. I saw the same clip, and you are right. Yeah, he blatantly blamed his offensive line, as if he also did not have anything to do with that loss, which is not true because Shedeur did not play great. He threw passes that normally he would make, and he just, for some reason, wasn't making them. And Travis Hunter even blatantly visually got mad at him, like, on the field. I don't know if he just wasn't locked in. I don't know what it was, but he left the game. He left the game early in the fourth quarter. He kind of just gave up and left the game. So
that is your dad being Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
And you've pretty much been. You have all the talent in the world because your dad is Deion Sanders, but you've also just never really had to work for anything and face adversity.
Let's see here.
Not mean to hate like that.
Yeah. LSU beats Nichols 44-21. Oklahoma beats Houston 16-12. Oklahoma does not look good again. They didn't look good last year. They don't look good again this year. Hopefully they could turn it around, but Jackson Arnold doesn't look all that great, and their O-line's not very good at all either. Clemson beats App State 66-20.
This is the one that
is interesting.
Talk about for a second.
Yeah, that one's interesting.
I know that you have not necessarily been that high on Clemson, but you got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, their offense was rolling. Cade Klubnik looked phenomenal in that game. Again, it's only App State, and usually App State's a sneaky upset team. I don't know what they're going to be like this year, but Clemson looked really good, and which brings my point back to the Miami game just a few minutes ago. I mean, now it is very interesting. Because I shouldn't say this because we're only 2 weeks into the season and there's so much football still to be played. But early on, it really looked like it was down to Louisville and Miami. If Clemson can play the way that they were playing like this and their offense can produce the way that it did against App State, that's going to be a fun three-way kind of who gets into the playoff type of thing between Clemson, Miami, and Louisville. All three look very solid, and I would be I'd be very excited to see where three top teams like that when they all clash. Because does Clemson play Miami? Do you know that if they do or not?
I can find out real quick. They do not.
No, they don't. Okay. Well, I was like, I know Louisville plays both Clemson and Miami, but yeah. So I hope, solely just for the fact to make it very interesting in the ACC, I hope Clemson continues to play this way. I really do, because it'll make things very fun and interesting.
Yeah, they blew out a team that they should have blew out, so I'll give them credit for that. They shouldn't. That game shouldn't have been close, because App State is nowhere close to the App State that people might be used to. But they play NC State this week. Sorry, they play NC State next week. Clemson also has a bye week this week. So, So, that game is going to be interesting because I think we'll be able to see a lot from both teams on who's better in the ACC or whatever. But to be honest, I don't see that game being very entertaining because Clemson's defense is really freaking good and Clemson's offense isn't great. So I really don't see that game being that entertaining. I feel like it's going to be very low scoring. Just an early prediction, I guess, for everyone out there. But this next game is also interesting for me, personally. Oregon beats Boise State 37-34. This is the second week in a row where Oregon has barely squeaked out a victory over a team that they should not have been that close with. In my personal opinion, I don't think Oregon should be in the top 10 still.
To be fair, which I definitely, Oregon definitely should have won definitely more than 3 for sure. But to, I guess, defend Oregon, they were playing against the best running back in football. Right? Like, I mean, I don't think there's a team on this planet right now that could stop that kid. He is absolutely phenomenal. I don't care. You could put the best defense in college football against him. I don't know if they're going to stop him. That's how solid he is. Other than that, though, I still think that Oregon should have won by more than 3 points. Credit to Boise State for being able to stick with them, but no, Dylan Gabriel looked okay, I guess. I don't know. I think Oregon will figure things out, in my opinion.
Hopefully they do. Arizona beats Northern Arizona by 22-10. They beat Northern Arizona 22-10. And finally, USC beat Utah State 48-0. Which USC looks damn good this year.
They look real good. Well, yeah, dude. There was a lot of games out there that was just like way too close for some reason that you don't know. You wouldn't think that these teams would even be in a close contest till like week 4, week 5, and they've already had a lot of just like having to play 100% for all 4 quarters already. So it's been a strange season so far, to say the least.
Yeah,
but it's been fun. It's been very fun.
It has been fun. All right. Well, yeah. Do you have anything else to?
Well, no. I was gonna move on to the next and final segment, which is
go ahead.
Week 3 predictions.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, me and Josh only disagreed on one matchup, being Illinois and Kansas. Obviously, Illinois won that game, but all in all, both of us together that we both agreed on, there was 3 missed picks. As of right now, Josh, you are sitting at 20-4 on the year. I am sitting at 21-3.
Of course, I am.
Other than the disagreement on the Illinois-Kansas game, we both picked Kentucky. That didn't go well. We both picked Notre Dame. That didn't go well. And then I forgot who the other one is. I have it written down right here. We both picked Iowa. Let me make sure that's right. We both picked Iowa on that. So those 3 were the 3 that we did miss. But right now, I have a 1-game lead over you going into these next weeks.
Awesome. That's exactly how last season was. I was just behind by 1 all year. All right. Well,
Josh, do you wanna read them all for us?
Yeah, I can. Let me just pull it up. All right. Are you ready?
I am ready.
We got Arizona at Kansas State to kick us off.
Friday night game. I'm gonna go with Kansas State.
Okay. Ugh, that's just tough. This is real tough. Oh boy. Oh boy. I'm gonna go with. I think I'm gonna go with Kansas State too. I think Will Johnson is gonna. I think Avery Johnson is gonna be able to lead that team to a victory there, and it's at Kansas State, so I think they can edge that one out there. Next one, we've got Oklahoma State at Tulsa.
Oklahoma State takes that one pretty easily.
I'm taking Oklahoma State as well. Next one, we've got Arkansas State at Michigan.
Michigan.
I would hope Michigan wins that one as well. Next one, we've got Alabama at Wisconsin.
I do think that Wisconsin can make it interesting. I think all in all, though, Alabama does win this one. But I would not be surprised if the jump around crazies come out in Wisconsin, and it's a pretty tight ball game.
Excuse me. I think Alabama takes that one, and I don't think it's relatively close, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a big Tyler Van Dyke fan, so they haven't looked too great this year. Next one, we've got LSU at South Carolina.
I got a feeling South Carolina is just going to come out flat as hell. LSU is going to win this game. Garrett Nussmeier is going to put on a show, so I'm taking LSU for sure.
I'm going to go LSU too. The next one, we've got Boston College at Missouri.
This is exciting. This is an interesting game here. If this was at Boston College, I would really consider taking Boston College, but being at Missouri's first real big game of the season, it's going to be packed there. I'm taking Missouri.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Missouri as well. Next one, we've got Ball State at Miami.
Miami.
Next one, we've got Oregon at Oregon State.
Oregon. I'm not high on Oregon State at all this year, especially after you losing the GOAT, DJU.
Yeah. Oregon has just looked so unimpressive to me.
They have, but Oregon State's is not good, in my opinion.
I'm gonna take Oregon. As well. Next one, we've got Tulane at Oklahoma.
This is another game that could be played tightly. I feel like Tulane's going to be that team that can just stick around these games that they have no business sticking around with. But overall, all in all, Jackson Arnold is going to be the deciding factor in this game. I think he has a great game, and Oklahoma wins.
This pick's going to ruin me, but I'm going to take Tulane. Oklahoma's not impressive to me at all.
Fair enough.
Their O-line was terrible against Houston, who had a terrible week. Houston had a terrible week one against UNLV, and then they went out there and barely lost to Oklahoma by 4. So Oklahoma just doesn't look impressive to me. I find Tulane to be an actual very challenge for them, and we already mentioned it earlier. Summerall's a great coach. He's had Tulane on a green wave for a few years now. So I find Tulane to be an actual tough challenge. I know it's at Oklahoma, but I don't care. I do think Tulane edges that one out. If not, maybe they beat them convincingly. Who knows? But I'm not impressed by Oklahoma. Next one, we've got Notre Dame traveling to in-state rival Purdue.
I think that Notre Dame comes out pissed off and absolutely lays the hammer down on Purdue at their own place. I think Notre Dame wins by 3 or more scores.
Yeah, I don't think Purdue's very good this year. I'm also going to take Notre Dame. The next one, we've got Utah at Utah State.
So is Rising 100% out for this week?
I don't actually know.
I think that Utah should handle this one with or without him. If they have him, definitely. I think without him, I would hope that
I'm gonna go Utah regardless.
Yeah, I think Utah should be fine. I'm gonna go Utah.
Okay. Next one, we've got Ole Miss at Wake Forest.
Ole Miss.
Yeah, I'm going Ole Miss too. Ole Miss has looked different this year. Lane Kiffin got them boys rolling right now. Next one, we've got UTSA at Texas.
Texas.
Yeah. Next one, we've got Northern Iowa at Nebraska.
Nebraska.
I'm also going Nebraska. Again, Dylan Raiola just looks very damn good. The next two, I feel like we'll both agree, sadly, because your team is involved in one of the last two. But we've got Georgia at Kentucky.
Going with the University of I can't. I'm going Georgia. As much as it hurts to say, I am going to go with Georgia.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Georgia as well. Although you guys do play them really good in the first half, as of like the last few years. Like every
that's
time
what I'm saying earlier.
every time I look at the halftime score, it's always like 14-6 or like 14-3 or something. And then the second half comes and then they just take off.
It's because normally we have a solid defense that can hold Georgia to field goals or just not just torching and Georgia scoring every play like they normally do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second half comes and our defense is worn out because our offense can't stay on the field more than 3 plays.
Yeah.
And it just gets out of hand from there.
Yeah. All right, next and final game we've got here is Kent State at Tennessee. And Kent State does not stand a chance. It is going to be Tennessee by a million.
Nope.
All right, Parker.
Well, Josh, that was the Week 2 recap there. This was a little bit longer than we probably anticipated. We have been recording here for a little bit. I know that our energy may not have been there like it always is. Both of us kind of getting over sicknesses and stuff like that. But we are very excited. This past week was very fun and exciting. And yeah. Josh, do you have any other closing things to say?
Looking forward to Week 3 of college, and I'm looking forward to Week 2 of NFL. And me and Parker we're gonna figure something out with the NFL. I promise. Yeah.
And finally, if you haven't yet, follow us on Twitter. This was kind of dumb for me to say right now because I don't know my Twitter handle off the top of my head. Mine is Mulhall, Mulhall Parker. Josh, if you want to state yours real quick.
Mine is I'm Josh Hua, which it's in the description. Go look at the description.
So yeah, definitely follow both of them and follow our Take His Whistle Twitter as well. We're gonna I'm gonna honestly be trying to be more active on my own Twitter, and then I'm also me and Josh both are gonna be more active on the Twitter that Josh has pointed at right below us. There, pointing to. So definitely follow all of our Twitters, all of our socials, really. Our TikTok, which I know is not down there, but we still do have a TikTok page, even though it hasn't been really posted on in a while. So give everything a follow if you do enjoy the podcast, and we should be back here same time next week.
Yep. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. See you guys.